Welcome back. Today is April 9th, 2020, and today's lesson is 17-4. Estimate the product of a decimal and a whole number. In our past lessons, when we were back in school, we did estimating, and there's two ways that we can estimate. Let's see if you remember. Rounding. Rounding is one. And what would be another one? Compatible numbers. What are compatible numbers? Let's see if you guys remember. Sure? So yes, it's a number that you can multiply mentally. So like 5, 10, anything that ends in 0 or in 5, it's easier for us to multiply mentally. So when we are rounding, what are the steps of rounding? That's correct. We look. So let's have this example right here. We have 87 hundredths. So if we would round this 8700, it's just like when we do a whole number. Let me pass over here, so like that you can see. We have this 8 right here. So that's the number that we are going to round. Now, how do we know if my number is going to go up or is it going to stay the same? Let's see if you guys remember. That is correct. We look at our neighbor. Our neighbor is our indicator if it's going to go up, one more space, or it's going to stay the same. So when does it go up? Yes, when it's 5. So let me do like the arrow. A number goes up when it's 5 or more. That is correct. So we got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So these are indicators that my number is going to move up. So if we look at 7, 7 is an indicator that my number is going to go up. So if we have an 8, if it's going to go one more, it's going to be 9. Good job. 9. So you guys are understanding a little bit? Good. So when we are using compatible numbers, we're thinking of a number that is close to 8, but it's a 5 or a 10 or it ends in 5 or a 5 or a 0. So let's see, what number is close to 8 and it's easier for me to multiply when I have to multiply? 5, that is correct. So if I'm going to use the compatible number for 87 hundredths, it's going to be rounded to 5 tenths and not 9 tenths. Why do I use 5 tenths when I'm using compatible numbers? Let's see if you guys remember. Yes, so when we are using compatible numbers, we're looking for that number that when I multiply together, it will give me the closest product. So that's why we use the 5, because it's really close to 8. Okay, so now that I've rounded or used my compatible number, I could multiply to find out the product, the estimate. So we're using the 87 hundredths. Let me make this a little bit over here. So we're using my 87 hundredths already, which we know it's going to be, if I'm using the rounding, it's going to be 9 tenths. And if I'm going to round 112, because I also have to round my whole number, if I'm going to round it to the nearest 100, we're looking at what number? Which one is going to be my indicator to know if this, my 1 in the hundredths place, is going to move up or going to stay the same? That's correct. The one that is in the tens place. So that's my indicator. Now, is it in the 5, is it 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9? No. So that means because it's less, what's going to happen? It's going to stay the same. So now my 1 and the rest are going to be zeros. Now, most of you were like, but Miss Davis, we haven't multiplied yet decimals with the whole numbers. It's pretty simple. I'm going to show you how. We have 9/10 times 100. So what I suggest that we do, and it's the easier way, we look at the numbers that are not zeros. So that means we're looking at the 9 and the 1. How much is 9 times 1? 9. So we're multiplying just like we do our regular algorithm. There's nothing different about it. We just do everything the same. Now, remember when I told you when there's zeros, we just add the zeros? Right, it's the easier way. But we're going to look only at the zeros that they do have a value. In this case, right, these 2 zeros indicate that this is 100. This 0 right here doesn't matter at all, so we were not going to look at it. We're not going to count it at all because it doesn't have nothing. It's, no meaning to it. So actually, the only ones that we're looking at are these 2 zeros. So that means we're going to put our 2 zeros here. Now, what happens with my decimal? Well, every time that we are finding the product of a decimal and a whole number, the number behind the decimal is going to be the same amount that we should have in our product. So if we look here, after the decimal, how many digits are there? 1. So that means that's the amount of numbers that should be behind my decimal number. So when I have, look here, we start from here, and that's where we are putting our decimal point. So that means that 87 hundredths times 112 is about 90. Okay? Why didn't I say 90.0? Because it's actually 90. Because any number before the decimal, it's just the way we read it normally, 90. And because the 0 doesn't have no value, we don't have to say it. Okay? So, let's do another one together. Let's do 104. Let's look over here. 104 times 33 hundredths. Okay, so we have 104 times 33 hundredths. So if we are going to round, we round to the nearest hundredths. So this 104 is going to be rounded to. I'm going to give you 2 seconds to think about that. We look at the number that is in the hundreds place, right? Because to the nearest hundredths. And the number that's going to indicate if we're moving up or staying the same is a 0. So it's less than 5. So that means our 1 stays the same. So we have 100. Now let's look over here. 33 hundredths, if we're rounding the 3. My 3 is my indicator. Is it more than 5? Is it 5 or more? Or is it less? It's less. So that means that it's going to be 3/10. That is correct. Now we multiply. We look at the numbers that are not zeros. 1 and 3. So we got 1 times 3, which equals 3. How many zeros? There's 1, 2. How many numbers are behind my decimal number? 1. So that indicates that's how many numbers in my product should be behind the decimal point. Are you guys getting it? So that means that 104 times 33 hundredths, it's about 30. Okay? So now you're going to take this time and practice doing your lesson 17-4. If you have any questions, remember you could always message me and I'll be right there for you. Okay? So watch the video again if you need to. Also, you have in your Nearpod the video of the lesson too. So you can watch that too and it could help you. Okay? So see you tomorrow. Bye.